Kim said she'd be within.
Yeah. Okay, we'll call this meeting of the Pawtucket School Committee to order at 6:01. Ms. Lipsy, please take a roll call.
Ms. Pinola. Here. Mr. Charbonneau.
Here.
Mr. Knight.
Here.
Mr. Larby.
Here.
Mr. Marino.
Here.
Ms. Doobie.
Here, please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on our agenda, we have special reports of student representatives. Do we have a representative from Charles E. Shea High School here?
Hello, everyone. My name is Linaria Santos. I am a junior at Shea. I did these last year, and I'm back for another year. These are our Shea happenings. We, along with Shea, along with Tolman, we held a graduation ceremony for our August graduates. We are so proud of them and their accomplishments and wish them well. On the second day of school, the seniors set their alarms early and joined together on the front lawn of Shea at 6:10 a.m. for senior sunrise. We will continue building our social skills. We call this Shea Time. Each week, our teachers will share a social skill lesson that we all, including students and staff, will put into place. These skills will not only be useful in the future, but right now. We began the iReady assessment last week in English and math. We will continue taking this test this week as well. Our sports news. The boys cross country team defeated Mount Hope High School on Monday. Joel DeCruz, Jamal Rodriguez, Isaiah DeGrassa, Omar Gomes, and Edwin Guevara led the Raiders. Newcomers Victor Rosario, Daniel Wang, and Brian Caldames showed a great deal of toughness. Yesterday, our ladies soccer team played against Wheeler. In the first half, Wheeler scored 2 unassisted goals and took that lead in half. In the second half, our ladies had many opportunities but couldn't capitalize. However, thanks to a great play in net by sophomore goalie Carissa Montero, and the final score remained 2-0 Wheeler. The girls cross country team did a fantastic job in their first dual meet of the season at Slater Park versus LaSalle and Mount Hope. Varsity football has a home game tomorrow against Barrington at 6. Our Key Club news. The Key Club had just held its first meeting this week. We will discuss upcoming events and fundraisers that we hope to hold throughout the school year. On Wednesday, August 24th, we held our freshman orientation. We started with a barbecue, and then we had kids in different groups take tours and learn about some of the fantastic opportunities at Shea from our very own students. We had great success and would like to thank the class of 2026, our student volunteers, and our teachers. We will now begin a bunch of clubs this year, including Drama Club. We have a new club called Meditation, and Glee Club. Robotics Club will also start up this year. All of our teachers have also been reviewing emergency procedures. We're going to be prepared this week to follow some of the procedures and keep aware if anything happens. There will be a junior assembly tomorrow to hold elections for the class. We have 4 candidates, and we hope to plan a bunch of new things for the school year. And that is it. Pardon me, I'm sorry. Hope you have all a great evening.
Thank you so much. Welcome back. Do we have a representative from William E. Tolman High School here?
Hi, my name is Ryan Venasian, and I'm a senior at Cameron High School. Cameron held its freshman cookout on August 25th. Over 250 students and parents braved the very warm temperatures to attend, receiving a tour of the entire high school. They enjoyed an informative evening and ended with a delicious barbecue and frozen lemonade. School opened smoothly on August 31st. Tomorrow will be the last day for any schedule adjustments. Back to school night has been scheduled for next Thursday, September 22nd. The event will begin at 5:45 and end at approximately 8 p.m. All parents and guardians are encouraged to attend and support their child's education. All sports are well underway, including boys and girls cross country, girls tennis, football, boys and girls soccer, and girls volleyball. The girls soccer team defended Woonsocket yesterday in a tough match, 1-0. While the football team will start its regular season this Friday against Charlotte.
Thank you so much. We have a representative from Jacqueline M. Walsh School for Performing and Visual Arts.
Hi, my name is Meredith Perez. I am a video and film major at Jacqueline M. Walsh High School for Performing and Visual Arts. We are happy to be back and have welcomed our class of 2026. Our students have been working on their iReady assessments, and we are all settling into our school routine. We're looking forward to an exciting year ahead. Upcoming events in JMW. We have our first Friends of JMW PTO meeting next Tuesday evening, followed by a PTO-sponsored skate night at US Skates on Thursday night. Our open house will be held on October 13th, and we are very excited to hold our prospective students opening house on Thursday, August 19th. Both events begin at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Perez, also for doing our recording for this evening. Okay, we'll move on to public participation. Ms. List, do we have anyone signed up? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to old business discussion action items, community schools grant update. Dr. Glaze.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I am pleased to inform the committee that we did submit our full schools community grant, and we are doing that as an LEA in collaboration with another LEA, Central Falls, and also with additional partners, which includes Rhode Island Department of Education, the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals, Boys Town USA, a project evaluator. Senator Jonathan Acosta also gave us a letter of support. We'll be working in collaboration with our Community Child Opportunity Zone, and we'll be working in collaboration with the Smart Clinics, Tides Family Services, Bradley Hospital. We received a letter of support from Senator Sandra Cano, and also included in this grant application is a program for Progreso Latinos. So it's a very, I believe you all have the document that we submitted online. It's very comprehensive. I think it's close to 200 pages, maybe 190 something. But what it all means is that we'll be able to expand the program to this school, Jenks Middle School, and with that expand programs and services at all the other community schools. So some of those services will be wraparound services with all those partners that I mentioned, social emotional services. Bradley Hospital will be doing, they have additional services. Boys Town has additional services for in-home 24/7, what's called coordinated care. It's very, I think of other services that are involved. Resources that include addressing urgent needs. So there's funding that's for urgent needs, because sometimes when you're first addressing issues, you have to address those urgent needs, which could include transportation, clothing, food, whatever those emergency needs are. And there'll be staff and program services to address those and funding to address that.
Before questions, can you clarify when we will find out if we get this grant?
So the online portal indicated that we should know by December 31st. We're hoping that we'll know before that, and we'd be able to start January 1. So thank you for that. Was one other thing I did want to mention. We are putting together an implementation team of all stakeholders. So that will include representatives from the Teachers Alliance, the national, the Rhode Island Teachers Alliance as well will be a partner with us in the implementation team, because something this large, $50 million, 7.5 for Pawtucket if we receive it, 7.5 for CF, over 5 years, something this large is going to take a large group of stakeholders to collaborate. So all those partners that I mentioned, along with our office, will be supporting and implementing the process. So we'll be meeting even before we learn whether we've received it, because we'll want to be able to hit the ground running January 1.
Mr. Nola, and Ms. Hunt?
So one of the things, and we were talking about SEL earlier,
Yes.
at one of the programs, they had mentioned that Bradley's was 4 months out to take a student, and psychiatrists and psychologists were hard to find. Are they addressing that with the grant?
Right, so, well, the grant wouldn't address their staffing, but what it does address is that this is urgent need. So written into the grant, I don't know if you had the opportunity to read through, the specs. The whole point of this is 24/7 care. It's not just Bradley Hospital, though. There's also Boys Town, who also has coordinated care, and they will have staffing on call 24/7 to receive, calls or support, and also include in-home services.
Okay, thank you.
My question is, in regards, I'm assuming here at Jenks would end up having a community coordinator. So how would we, if we don't hear until the last minute and the hope is to start January 1st, how would we go about hiring someone in such a short period of time?
Right, so, correct, that will be a challenge, because we don't want to put out we cannot advertise to apply for a position until we actually have the funding. But the position is one piece of this, so if we receive this grant, that's what I'm saying, as far as the implementation team, we want to be able to get all these coordinated services in play, and a procedure and process in place. So that would, but the grant covering the actual position, we wouldn't be able to advertise that until we learn about the grant. And there's a 14-day window, right, as far as when we advertise positions. So I would expect that there are people out there that have a passion for community schools and a coordinator. So I suspect that it might take, a few weeks, but, the advertising would take a few weeks, and then interviewing, and then getting someone on board.
Superintendent, a couple of questions. So the implementation team, and I know I heard a bunch of partners identified, but are we talking about all those partners being involved in the implementation team?
So the implementation team, we'll have a core group of people that will meet. I expect that we'd like to meet probably mid-October. We'll meet together. So that will include PTA leadership, that will include the school, the coordinators currently in the school, representatives from our office. I know that the AFT president has already indicated that, they'd like to be part of it. So there'll be a core group that will actually start working on, going through line by line. If you looked at the grant, there's goals in there. So we have to address those goals. I think we talked about this even when we talked about the strategic plan. You have the goals, but now you have to have action steps. So that is going to take time. So there'll be a core group of people. But when we get to the point when we start, it's like anything else. You start with that core group, but now you have to bring in, it will include coordinating with those partners. So they'll be participating at some level, yes.
Right. I having been involved in this from the beginning, I just want to ensure that our internal voices aren't getting silenced and or so when we talk about an implementation team, my vision or my thought would be it should be Pawtucket School Department stakeholders, and then we bring in Boys Town, or we bring in the Boys and Girls Club, or whomever, with some kind of directive that this is going to be their part of it. I just worry about if we bring everybody to the table, everybody's going to be looking to enhance
So
their.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but let me clarify. So Pawtucket School Department is the facilitator of this grant. So when it got entered into the federal portal, we are the contact people. So we're the owner, the facilitator, the coordinator of the grant. So although we have these partners that are going to be supporting, and they wrote letters, and they're going to be providing services, we are the operator of the grant fiscally too, fiscally and program-wise. So our business office will be working on the fiscal part of it, and Pawtucket School Department, which will include our staff, PTA leadership, those coordinators, and you mentioned COSI, but COSI is Pawtucket School Department. I wanted to mention that because Child Opportunity Zone is part of Pawtucket School Department, so we're looking at them as part of our internal team that will be working on this implementation. Does that clarify it?
A bit. I mean, I think, and maybe I didn't explain it well enough or articulate it well enough. I'm just looking to see that the predominant voices in the room at the table are representative of the Pawtucket School Department, your office, the AFT, the staff, whomever internally needs to be there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we will ensure that happens.
Seeing no further discussion on this, we'll move on to old business discussion action item, school committee policy, second passage, GCV personnel selection of coaches. Mr. Larkin.
Before you today for second passage is policy GCB, selection of coaches. The only change to this policy was to add a national background check along with the local PCI check.
A motion to approve the second passage by Mr. Mello, it was seconded by Mr. Marino. Discussion. Ms. Grant.
So I have a couple of concerns. Recently we've been notified as a committee that the athletic director is going to be coaching the football team at Shea. And my concern is that I think what we need to do is maybe kind of lengthen this. I know the superintendent in an email to us has told us that the athletic director has stated that himself or the assistant athletic director would be at all of the football games, whether they be Tolman or Shea. Because my concern is, and unfortunately this does happen at games, that if there is an incident where the athletic director is needed, unfortunately football games are played at the same time. And I'm very concerned that we wouldn't be able, or the appropriate people wouldn't be contacted or be able to get there because they've committed to something else within the district. I think in the position of a administrator who oversees 2 high schools, I understand we do have an assistant. Unfortunately, it seems like one tends to take care of one high school, one takes care of the other. But I am very concerned, and I would like to see if we could get some verbiage in here in regards to the coaches not being of administration level. Like I said, in case there is a need for that particular athletic director, say for example, it's a Friday night, there's a Tolman Shea game, there's a fight at the Tolman game. You know, now we have this particular, so say for example, the assistant director is not really at that game. You know, I think we have to have some things in place to make sure that when we do have people in these certain positions, that they're actually providing and doing the job that they're responsible for. And I do see that it could possibly be a conflict. So I'd like to see, you know, I know the superintendent has worked things out with, and I know at this point we probably can't do anything about it. But my hope is that maybe we could kind of table this and maybe extend it to also include, or whether we have to do a different one in regards to how we appoint or allow people to do positions. Because from what I understand, and I think this had come up before, that we had shared that we didn't think it was a good idea for him to still coach, and I believe he was told when he took the position. And then now, it seems like we're kind of he's not gonna be available to the other high school if he's coaching at the same time. So I think going forward, we need to have something in place, a policy, kind of covering this to make sure that all our children or all our students are receiving the same opportunity or the same fairness from a particular person in a position that's supposed to be overseeing the whole piece of the pie, instead of just some of it.
I know Mr. Nolo had a question. Are you,
Yeah,
okay,
no,
I just do want to emphasize that if we do table, we cannot start asking for national background checks from coaches yet, because it would only be through first passage,
And
okay?
like I said too, if in a school, maybe you might want to chime in, maybe what comes out of this is we do a different policy.
Mr. Nolo, and then Mr. Knight.
So, it does say in the first paragraph that the coach resigns prior to the start of the season or early during the sports season, the position shall be posted immediately. Did we do that when the coach resigned?
So the coach resigned, I would say that early during the season. No, we did not do that. No, because the athletic director was already acting as a co-head coach. And so, we did not post, no.
Right, but that's directly against policy that we voted on.
Well,
So we do have a procedure in place where it should have been advertised and then it would have avoided.
well, it says early during the coaching season. So when we look at that, these coaches are hired for football back in the beginning of the summer. And they start in early August. So, in the situation that we were in, it
Happened
wasn't,
in
I guess,
September, so that's
yeah,
1 month.
you could say it's early during the season.
But, wait a minute, Mr. Nolo, Mr. Knight.
The problem with the co-head coach would automatically be the head coach, so I don't see that there was an opening there. But all BCI checks are required for any employee by state law. The adding the national and local BCI check, the national is the addendum, the local is already required. We already have police assigned to every game anyway, don't we? I don't see why we're gonna have athletic directors, coaches, or whomever get in the middle of fights. It's what you got police for.
Ms. Grant, sorry, Ms. Grant, you want to clarify your statement?
It wouldn't be the middle of the fight, but when something takes place at a building or a school function, the administrator who's responsible or overseeing that would be contacted to hopefully to report to that situation, or if there was anything there. So, like, for example, some items took place at Winters. So Dr. McWilliams was called and she reported there to check out what was happening.
Two different things.
Well, I just used fight as example. It could be any issue. Maybe people couldn't get into the field, but I just think that this is a position of administration. Athletic director is a position who oversees all of our athletics. And for them to be contained to one position, to take on a specific position, that they're making a commitment to that. So if something does happen, that he should be following through on his job, with his job, that does come up specifically through a game, and he has to, he needs to be available. If he goes out of town or whatever, that's a completely different story. But to be at another school's, to be leading and working at another school's particular football game when he is responsible for everything athletic-wise within the different district, to me is concerning that he needs to be available.
Can I just clarify if we can, so we have a policy on the, right here. Is it possible for us to passage this with the language in it, but at the same time, send the issue of selection of coaches to policy just to see what language would look like?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we could do both at the same time. It would just have to be or we could take the second passage and then we could have that discussion. Okay. Mr. Charbonneau had his hand up as well. So,
No,
No, my question was answered. You just asked it. I was wondering how many national background checks were waiting to have administered, and if we could move on with this and then kick it back, as you suggest.
So, at this point, we could vote on the second passage of this, and then we could entertain a motion under the same item of selection of coaches to discuss this further issue if people are amenable to that solution. If there's no discussion on the adding of national and local, and then we can continue the discussion.
Right, any change to this policy would not be retroactive, correct? So it would be for coaches beginning next season? Okay.
Mr. Knight.
I think BCI checks national and local as a matter of fact already. It's checked automatically by the BCI people.
Mr. Larby, during your research, you did find it was only local, correct?
Yeah. So
It's only local, not national.
What national is done, trust me.
I know.
I got more experience with it than
Mr.
anybody
Larby?
here.
Yeah, so for the national background check, you have to go to the Attorney General's office and get the FBI fingerprints completed with the regular BCI check. All you need to do is just sign off on documentation that they're allowed to run your background check. And with the local BCI check, it only checks Rhode Island, and you can do that at any local police station. But the national background check has to be done at the Attorney General's office.
Thank you, Mr. Larby. Mr. Knight.
As a matter of fact, you have to do that to get a BCI check in Rhode Island. You've got to go to the Attorney General's office. The city police departments will not do a BCI check for somebody walking in saying they're from the school department or wherever. Been through it, know it, worked in the department for a while. Trust me, everybody has to go to the Attorney General.
Is there any further discussion on the language being in here? Ms. Lister, will you please take a roll call on the motion to second passage this?
Ms. Vinolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant. Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. There was further discussion on this item though. So before we move on, are there any other motions to put on the table? Mr. Charbonneau.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion that we send back policy GCV, personnel selection of coaches, back to the policy subcommittee to look at expanding the language to cover multiple positions held by one person within the department.
Is that a motion by Mr. Charbonneau? And seconded by Ms. Grant. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The next item is, sorry, I have different days to be here. The next item is approval to have legal counsel perform a feasibility study for the potential use of a project labor agreement on the Baldwin rebuild. Mr. Charbonneau?
Thank you, Madam Chair, colleagues on the committee. As you know, we entered into a project labor agreement for the new construction at Winters based on several unique circumstances to that area of the city and to the neighborhood. I think we've seen during that build really the value of that union partnership. There were occasions where staffing was challenged, and the union worked collaboratively with us and with Gilbane to get additional bodies there. As we look at the new build at Baldwin, I think it's even more important that we ask legal counsel to perform this feasibility study. Unlike Winters, Baldwin is nestled right in the neighborhood. You know, Winters kind of has Broadway and there's some highway access close by. I think it makes all the sense in the world. We've had a great result as far as I'm concerned with the project labor agreement at Winters. And I would make a motion that we approve legal counsel to perform the feasibility study for the potential use of a project labor agreement at Baldwin.
And a motion to approve the legal counsel performing a feasibility study for Mr. Charbonneau, and seconded by Mr. Knight and Mr. Noel. Is there any discussion on this item?
Just one comment. I believe this would take the form of a change order. Is that correct, Attorney Conley? Or how would, it's not encompassed within our legal contract as it sits now. This is an additional expense. So I wanted to make the committee aware of that.
Any further discussion? Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call.
Ms. Fenolo,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant, Mr. Knight, Mr. Larby, Mr. Marino, Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. The next is the Gifograph. How do you say that? Gifograph contract. I believe the person here is here who represents this. And just a question, is this what the Pawtucket Library has? Oh, my kids have used this. This is cool.
Good evening. Before you this evening is a Gifograph service contract between John Rick Fritz LCC, Gifograph, and the Pawtucket School Department. Gifograph animation machines allow students to create their own images of the GIFs and bring them to life through animation. The contract would provide 4 Gifograph animation machines, 8 Gifograph classroom kits, professional development, system maintenance, and 5 workshops for the Winters Elementary School as part of the STEAM initiative. Gifograph is is a Pawtucket-based company. Mr. Sam Shore is here. And Gifograph currently works with our COSY program at Curtis Elementary, and also workshops for children at the public library. This contract has been vetted by our legal team, and it will be funded under ESSER 3.
So the motion to approve by Ms. Fenolo, and seconded by Mr. Larby. Mr. Knight.
I have a question. Did this ever go out to bid to anybody?
The
Gifograph or whatever it is? Did the machines or anything go out to bid?
No,
We just bought them.
this is the contract to buy them.
So we're the only.
It's sole
It's a
source.
sole source.
What?
It's sole source. Meaning they're the
source.
only ones that make it,
There's no other company anywhere that provides this.
not the Gifograph.
Not the Gifograph specifically or not this service.
Gifograph specifically.
So we didn't see if anybody else had the product.
When a company has a sole source letter, stating that they're the only ones that make that product, we do not.
That particular product, but you're talking about animation machines. I know for a fact they have them other places, and you should know that too.
Not this.
Not the Giffafact, but why did we go to Giffafact instead of going to see if there was somebody who was interested? We're required to have 3 bids for anything we enter a contract for. Why are we ignoring
Unless
that?
it's a sole source.
Unless it's a sole source. How do you know it's a sole source?
We have the company that's been vetted by us.
That particular thing.
Can you please let him finish his statement?
We have the sole source letter that was submitted to us, and we just submitted to legal.
Okay.
Do other companies make the animation machines?
Not this one, not the Gifograph.
That's not what I'm asking you.
Okay,
I'm
Mr. Knight.
asking you, do other companies make animation machines?
I'm sure there are other animation
But
machines.
we didn't go out and look for anybody else.
Not this particular Gifograph device, no.
We didn't bother to follow the contract rules.
Ms. Grant.
I just had a couple of questions. So the particular contract and what happens. So what happens is these machines come to our school. Is it a rented contract or are we buying them?
So we're buying these machines out
Okay.
flat out for Winters. Normally they're rented out, but we're buying them out for.
Okay. And then is there like so I just wanna, I know there's a warranty and things like that, but, if we had problems with them for service and things like that, the service would go directly through your company also,
Yeah, and that's part of the contract.
and it's part of the, so just say, for example, this particular, machine lasts us like, I don't know, 20 years. So, so for the lifetime of this particular, we get the service included in it, correct? I just was kind of checking.
Yes, we're committed to servicing these machines as long as you have. The contract pays for that service for a year.
Okay.
So you have to re-up the servicing.
So we have to go, like, kind of, do a contract with you after, maybe like a service contract or
Exactly.
something after a year?
Our hope is to commit to this program for at least 20 years.
Yeah,
For
no,
sure.
definitely.
Not only on the contract, I mean, on the technical side, but also on programming, working with teachers, the curriculum. So absolutely, we will have to re-up the service contract to keep the technical support going, just to pay our staff.
Okay.
But yes, that will continue as long as the machines are in your hands. And, you know, we're a Pawtucket-based company, less than a mile away. We'll be at the schools for sure, making sure that the program is successful and the machines are maintained and taken care of.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Shabbat.
So we're buying 4 of the machines, 8 of the class kits. How many students does that allow to have access to do animation?
Yes, so each classroom kit services an entire class of 25 to 30 students with a little bit of flex. The machines are able to be used by as many kids as you want. You know, at the Pawtucket Library, we've had over 1,000 movies made by over 300 different patrons, right? And they have 2 machines at the library. With the program that we're designing, we're targeting 2 grades at Winters. So the entirety of those grades. We're still working out exactly what grades, you know, once this is approved and we can work with the teachers at the school, we'll figure out exactly who's going to get to use it. But yeah, this year rather, as they're implementing, we're hoping around 200 students, eight kits, you know, with the 25 students each. The machines themselves can be used, you know, as much as you want. The materials in the classroom kits, which include, you know, curriculum, paper materials, art supplies, everything you need to make your animation. It's all cut paper animation. That will serve about 25 students per kit, if that makes sense.
25 students per kit.
Per classroom kit. So there's a difference between machines, which are just, we could have a machine here, you can animate on it, and then there's the materials in the classroom kit, and those are more of a consumable, right? So kids are cutting them up, you know, adding things, changing things.
Right.
And those have a lifespan of a year for about 25 students.
So if we bought 8 and each one services 25 students, my math's not too good, but that's 200 students.
That's correct, yeah.
We have how many students at Winters? And I recognize we have different grade levels and all, but I'm just trying to gauge why it seems like if this is a fantastic thing and it's well received at the Pawtucket Library, it seems like we're limping into this thing with a under $30,000 ESSA 3 commitment. And I'm just curious.
Well, speak to that, Mr. Charbonneau. At the new Winters, we have a STEAM classroom, and we have a teacher that is teaching in the STEAM classroom a couple of periods. So we had to limit this to a couple of classrooms, a couple of grade levels, so we're not limping in, we're kind of cautiously going forward on a very positive thing to make sure that we can service all our students. Eventually. But so right now, these 4 can handle the time that the teacher is in there for the STEAM block.
Got it.
Mr. Knight.
How much does each of these machines cost?
$4,200.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Vinall.
Okay, so devil's advocate here. So it does say that if we get supplies from elsewhere, it has to be negotiated with you, which is fine. But if JFR disappears, what becomes of our program?
Can we have legal answer that question? That sounds like a legal question. If it's in here,
and JRF no longer exists.
Right, if they default under the contract, we'll have remedies, to address that default, depending upon the extent of the default, the nature of the default. If they don't exist and, we're working with a sole source provider, we are going to need to find another source, in order to fill the remainder of the services required and, see what remedies we have under the contract for that default.
I am not wishing that on you, by the way.
Pawtucket company. Mr. Charbonneau.
I may be one of the more fiscally conservative members of this committee, but I mean, we're talking about $29,000 here for something that is widely been positively received at the Pawtucket Library that's right up the street or down the street, however you look at it. I think it's something, it's something that our kids
are going to enjoy participating in. And I think the results at the library prove that. And again, we're talking about $29,000 here.
And the program at Cozy as well, because Cozy also has it at Curtis.
Right.
Mr. Knight.
Why didn't we seek other vendors? That's my question.
Do you have a different answer than before?
I'll speak to this. There is not an all-in-one animation machine on the market. And just to provide some context, our software engineer works for Google. Google allows software engineers to moonlight on projects that are outside of their jurisdiction. Google did a search to ensure that Zach was not doing a competitive thing, right? So you can look up in the market. There are stands that hold cameras, that hold lights. There are cameras that you can buy. There are iPads you can buy. What we've done is we've brought that all into being an all-in-one machine. I'd love to have you try the machine out. I can assure you there's nothing like it on the market.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Knight.
Kiwi and Company has a machine that's like this, and I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to him.
Excuse me, Mr. Knight. So you can ask your question, but we have 3 people standing up here. Mr. Knight.
Ricardo Pimento, correct. Why wasn't another company searched for?
Because this is a sole source product.
No, it isn't. There are
Thank
other
you.
companies online that you can buy.
I don't know how else I mean, it is a sole source product.
Thank you. Yes, I would just like to, I would like to add that my children have used this at the Pawtucket Library. I remember the first time we walked in and it was there and there were a bunch of kids using it and they waited their turn to use it. And it really is extremely engaging and the results are immediate, that they can see what their animation is. It's not like this kind of waiting process, and it is very tactile for our students. It's not like you're not just moving a mouse on a computer, you're creating this animation out of, as you said, paper. And like I said, I think that it would be wonderful if committee members want to see it first.
And Madam Chair, if I may too, the goal is to expand this to all of our elementary schools as well. Mr. Charbonneau, we want to expand it. We started with Cozy, we're moving it into the STEAM initiative at Winters, but the goal is to expand.
Yeah. Ms. Grant and then Ms. Spinello.
I know Ms. Stevie said, you said it's at the library, so if we wanted to see it, because it sounds cool. So if we wanted to see it, we would just go to the library.
So in the children's room at the library upstairs, there are 2 set up at the end of the computer area. Yes, Ms. Spinello.
Mrs. Ramsey, how many of the schools are set up with STEAM capabilities that we could put this into? And are we only doing elementary, or are we introducing this into the upper grades?
So at this point, it's just Winters. So how many other schools are at the point where we can merge this in? Probably none yet. But it is our goal, like Rico said, it is our goal to move into the other schools. And just recently, there was an interest at the middle level, but they backed off with the arts initiative. They had originally started that they wanted to think about doing a gifograph or an animation program at the middle level. So it would be appropriate to move into that point, but we're starting with Winters.
Is this something that could be added to GOPS?
I think anything's possible.
Okay.
Oh, can you look into it?
Sure will.
Just curious.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, Mr. Knight.
We have a directive from the state of Rhode Island that anything over, I believe it's about $5,000, has to go out for bid. Why we're not bid sought? And don't tell me it's a sole source, because that doesn't answer why a bid wasn't sought. There are other companies listed.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Okay. Ms. Leslie, please call the roll.
Ms. Vanilla. Yes. Mr. Charbonneau. Yes. Ms. Grant. Mr. Knight.
No.
Mr. Larby. Yes. Mr. Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 6-1. Thank you so much. Okay, we are on to approval of budget transfers.
Oh. Is not here, so I'm going to be taking that for her. So at last meeting, if you recall, a motion was made to increase supplies for and materials for the new libraries. And she had said she'd come back with a transfer. So this is a transfer of $60,000. And some of that funding came out of an iReady program that we are not needing to fund right now because it's funded by the state.
Then a motion approves the budget transfer by Ms. Fenolo, is seconded by Mr. Charbonneau. Any discussion? Ms. Grant.
I just want to check. So when we did this, we only approved the, didn't we do some media centers for older? Like, didn't we do media centers at the middle schools? No?
No, these, the media, no, that's Steve. So it's Cunningham, Curtis, Curvin, Little, Fallon, and Barrier. And the motion was to add $60,000 and divide it between those. And she has a process of signing it for enrollment.
Ms. Grant, Dr. McWilliams, if you know off the top of your head, we did other projects out of that facilities equity initiative
yes,
at
yes.
other schools. Can you, I know Goff was the steam room.
So Goff had a steam room enhancement, and then we had these buildings, and what else was it? One of them- Slater cafeteria. So you're talking about the facilities equity grant?
Maybe.
Yes.
So maybe I just got confused.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure. I thought there were more than just the elementary school, so I just wanted to confirm.
I see no further discussion. Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call.
Ms. Vanilla. Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. We are now on to approval of Rhode Island Municipal Insurance Corporation, RIMAC agreement.
And so before you is an agreement that goes through 2024. It's an insurance collaborative and 2-year agreement, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
The motion approved by Ms. Vanillo, seconded by Mr. Larby. Any discussion on this item? Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call.
Ms. Vanilla. Mr. Charbonneau. Ms. Grant. Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larby. Mr. Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. The next item is, wow, that's long. Is Baldwin Elementary School recommendation to award RTA 03 abatement and demolition. Mr. Charbonneau, we have a few facilities items here. Are you introducing these, or do you want me to just send them right over to, Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Baldwin Elementary School recommendation to award RTA 03 abatement and demolition.
Hello, everyone. Excited to be back for this important milestone on the Baldwin project, getting ready to award abatement and demolition services. Before you today, we have RTA 03. This is for abatement and demolition of the Baldwin Elementary School. We're recommending a motion today to approve RTA 03 abatement and demolition as recommended by Shawmut Design and Construction to AA Wrecking and Asbestos of Johnston, Rhode Island, for a not to exceed amount of $1,144,591. I would be remiss if I did not mention that this work actually came in substantially under budget, approximately $270,000 under budget. AA Wrecking and Asbestos Abatement Company is also the same group that did the Winters demolition as well. Happy to take any questions on this RTA.
And a motion to approve this RTA 03 by Ms. Vinolo, seconded by Ms. Grant. Discussion on the RTA. Mr. Charbonneau, then Ms. Vinolo.
Go ahead, Ms. Fennell.
Asking when it would be done.
So we're looking at abatement starting at the beginning of the month. Abatement will last about 1.5 to 2 months, and then we'll start to see demolition right after this.
Okay.
Of course, signs posted, dust control was a big part. I actually attended all of the scoping meetings with all of the bidders on this project. Excellent dust control. They're all aware of how close the site is. We're in a neighborhood. We're not in a commercial area whatsoever. Extreme attention to detail will be used.
Thank you.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Chris, it must have got by me at Winters, but 0 MBWB participation out of AA Wrecking?
Yes, they are not a licensed MBE firm in Rhode Island.
But Chalmers is aware of this committee's commitment
Absolutely.
to advancing the MBWB percentage. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Lissy, please take a roll call.
Ms. Vinolo, Mr. Charbonneau, Ms. Grant, Mr. Knight, Mr. Larby, Mr. Marino, Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. Our next item is Baldwin Elementary School budget discussion and approval. Is that still you?
That is still me. So committee members, today I'm coming before you seeking an increase to the overall project budget for the Baldwin Elementary School project to the tune of $10,079,465. This increase is the result of multiple factors, including the addition of programming areas separate from the stage 2 submission, labor market shifts, industry inflation, and global supply chain disruption. Some key figures I put before you: the original cost estimate at $64 million. We performed internal value management to reduce the price to $56,992,298. The added scope, which is in the attachment, valued out at $4,190,351 in construction. We're looking at a revised price without the added scope of $52,801,000. That represents a 12.6% increase. With an industry average right now between 20 and 25%. I don't know if this group remembers, but when Gilbane actually presented for the on the Baldwin project as the CM, they provided a slide which basically showed how much Winters would cost if it was the GMP was signed today, and that was a 20% increase. We feel very strongly that 12.6% increase in this current market is very good. The original budget was $58,964,245 in 2019. The revised budget in 2022 would be $69,043,710. Working with the school department, we would recommend the following pathway to adjust the overall budget to fully fund the project. We would increase the MOA for the Baldwin Elementary School project by $5,028,421.68 to fund the added scope that is contained within the attachment. We would deduct that same figure from the current MOAs for the Shea High School and Tolman High School out of the original $234 million bond. We would also fund $1,787,242 from the second round of the Facilities Equity Initiative. We had a call with Chief Operating Officer Carania the other day, and he said the applications are forthcoming for districts to apply for this funding. And then we would also request that we earmark $3,286,801.02 from the district's capital fund, while additional cost savings are being realized throughout the bidding process. An example of that would just be the demo number that I just presented before you. That $270,000 is an example of how we reduce this number through the bidding process. Should the use of these funds be, we would also look at using deduct alternates, and of course those deduct alternates would be vetted by this committee, the facilities committee, and of course the school committee. And should the use of those funds be required, they will not be eligible for housing aid reimbursement. I did want to make that very succinctly clear. I'm happy to take any questions on this matter. I understand it's a large amount of money that we're requesting.
Okay, Ms. Grant, and then Mr. Charbonneau, do you have a hand?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Grant and then Mr. Charbonneau.
I just want to make sure, just a couple of things. I just want to make sure.
Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have a motion yet. Thank you, Ms. Liss.
Motion to approve.
Okay, the motion to approve by Mr. Charbonneau is seconded by Ms. Vanilla. Ms. Grant, I apologize for interrupting Ms. Grant.
I just want to make sure that the plans or the things that we have discussed for Baldwin, we're not going to be taking anything away from the building, the students, or the district.
So I'm really glad you asked that question, because As of right now, we were able to achieve this value management number without reducing any programming space or with any of the visioning sessions that we had with the teachers. There's a few small changes that one of the examples would be the connecting doors between the classrooms. Instead of them being double connecting doors, they would be single connecting doors. But other than that, there really hasn't been any changes to the programming scope. Everything that was fleshed out in stage 2 and the original visioning session still remains. We were able to achieve these savings by shrinking footprints in some areas, looking for more cost-effective MEP systems, ways of building the building. That's why bringing Charlotte on really early, as opposed to once we already had design, was really beneficial, because they were able to look at the drawings and say, if you just change this, we'd be able to build it for cheaper.
And then my second question is, if we approve this tonight and we draw up our contract with Shawmut, this will be our budget.
That is correct.
So if, God forbid, we do go through a situation like we have been in regards to COVID and the manufacturing businesses not supplying things like they had in the past, that the price wouldn't continue to skyrocket.
So this is the budget that we're asking for. The GMP, which is what I think you're referring to, the actual contractual, we are hoping that that will be lower. That's where we reference that when we, in the bidding process, we're looking to reduce the overall cost, and the GMP will hopefully be lower than this number. That is, this number, I should also say, includes soft costs. This is your all-in cost for the project, not just the construction number. This, the total value at 69,000.
Thanks, Chris.
Of course.
Ms. Charbonneau.
So of the 10 million in cost escalation, supply chain issues and whatnot, you're actually looking for us to come to the table with 3.2 million out of our capital reserve. So we, as a reminder to the committee, we have roughly 7 million in that capital reserve without the surplus, the expected surplus that we're looking to move in. Is that correct, Superintendent? So I think, Chris, it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and earmark that 3.2 million. I do have a concern though with kind of the simplicity in which you explained how we just shaved 7 million off the project without really affecting anything.
So a lot of it had to do with reducing the overall square footage of the project. We met with Dr. Joe De Silva, had an internal meeting with him, and we were able to.
So I don't mean to interrupt you, but it may go quicker if I can just chime in.
Sure.
So we reduced the overall square footage of the project from what to what?
From 106,000 to about 94,000. Sorry, 96,000.
So yeah, 10,000, 12,000 square feet. Okay. All right. Yeah. As you were explaining, I'm saying, well, wait a minute. It sounds like
that was the big one. Is reducing the overall square footage is how you were looking at the price.
Is that interior or exterior?
That's your gross square footage.
Ms. Charbonneau?
No, I think given the times we're in, and I think, Chris, it also references in the packet that as we go out for certain bids, the concrete, the what have you, any savings versus the budgeted is going to get put back towards that 3.2 number.
So that is correct. That's why the demo number that I just mentioned today, that $270,000 savings would be applied to that 3.2 number. I would also mention that we do have a contingency for this project. I don't feel comfortable saying it in public because that's something I think we want to keep to ourselves.
Sure.
But we do have a very healthy contingency for this project that would cover a good deal of this.
And I would just say that, and I will ask of our CFO to keep a running tally of that 3.2 million. And then any savings we get so that it's a one pager for the committee to look at as we go forward. But I think, just as quickly as costs escalated, they may nosedive, and then we may realize that this was a good decision at this time.
And Chris, I just want to clarify, because you brushed over it quickly, and then Mr. Charbonneau brought up that the reason we're hitting that 3.2 million as the last of the three is because that's the one that is not reimbursable by housing aid.
That is correct. Yes,
Okay.
I want to make that clear.
The facilities equity initiative, that 1.7, that similar to our media centers, is 100% state money, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And,
Thank you. And the other one is reimbursable by
traditional
state.
reimbursement.
So you pay out, you get back the percentage. Okay, wonderful. Any further questions on this? Oh, Mr. Knight.
So we've had a 20% increase in the contract that we're proposing from the beginning of the proposal.
No.
We're not talking about a 20%
Can you
increase?
tell us what the increase is?
From the 58 million from the 2019 budget to the 2022 budget?
The original cost estimate was
We're doing-
revised to 56.9.
Yes. And then we took out the added scope. This added scope was $4,190,351. It includes the additional pre-kindergarten classrooms, interventionist workspaces, items like that. And then that's how we got to the 52,801, which represents a 12.6% cost increase.
Okay.
Mr. Charbonneau?
So we took out 4 million in added scope?
No, we kept 4 million of added scope in. The way that we're presenting this to you is that it wouldn't be fair to compare the budget for Baldwin without the added scope that we've added in, the 2 additional pre-Ks and interventionist workspaces and things like that. That would provide an untrue look at actually how much the project has increased. From an apples to apples perspective, when we take out all the extra stuff we added in, it's a 12.6% cost increase.
But we're doing that to explain the finances. The actual build will have all the added scope that we added back in.
That is correct. So it's right here actually in the attachment. It's an additional 2 pre-K classrooms, an additional pre-K breakout room, a kindergarten breakout room, an additional 2 miscellaneous breakout rooms. We increased the size of the learning commons. We added a book storage room, and we added an interventionist workroom. And that came out through the vision process that we had with the teachers.
Got it.
Okay, Ms. Vanello.
So we decreased our square footage.
Mm-hmm.
Are we still within guidelines of square footage required by students?
This, the program that you look before you has been vetted and approved by Jody Sullivan.
All right.
Thank you. Mr. Knight.
The original budget was 58,964,000, correct?
That is the original MOA for this project.
And now we're looking at 69,043.
Yes.
Is that correct? So we're looking at a $10 million, 10,079,000 adjustment upward. Yes. Okay, what's the percentage of that? I can tell you. Sure. It's about 13, 14%, maybe 15. So it's a change order is what it is. And you put all these figures down to confuse everybody. You got a $10 million increase on 58 million.
When you have added construction costs, you also have added soft costs. When you have added students, we added an additional 2 pre-K classrooms. You need to add in technology for those students. You need to add in furniture for those students. It's not as simple, I think, as you're making it out to be.
Okay, thank you for explaining. Mr. Knight, do you have a further question?
You got added construction costs, but you took out 106 square feet?
No.
What was it? How many square feet did you take out?
Between 11 and 12,000, I believe.
Okay,
off the top of my head.
12,000 square feet, and it goes up 10 million plus. Huh?
Sir, it was $64 million.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
That didn't answer my question.
Ms. Grant.
That brought another number in.
Okay, Ms. Grant.
Jesus.
I want to thank you because I know in this day and age, we were very fortunate with winters, with everything that we had gone through with COVID and, I'm sorry, is it, what did you say it's called, the GMR?
GMP.
GMP, sorry, I was only off by
one letter. Good. Just one letter in the alphabet.
And I think we did really well, and I think you guys did a great job, with guiding us to make sure that the school, came in on budget, and unfortunate. I think unfortunately, I think we're in that stage where I think most of us, probably not all of us, really did expect that it might be difficult for us to kind of use the budget that we were going to have for Baldwin to make it the school that we wanted to do it. So I just want to thank you. I know kind of come out up here sometimes in front of us can be really hard, and you constantly have to explain yourself. But I think this project is just as important as the other projects that we've done, and I think we want to make sure this one happens just like Winters happened and the reconstruction of the other schools that we have in our district. So again, I just want to, thank you for you guys trying to crunch the numbers and do what you have to do to help us make this happen.
So thank you. It was about a 3-month process to get the number this low. So thank you so much for recognizing it. We really appreciate it.
And you did mention that you are already in conversation with RIDE, because I know this new facilities equity initiative money is coming out, and they are aware that we will have.
That's correct. The CFO and myself had a conversation with Ms. Devine last week.
Okay, wonderful.
I mean, sorry, excuse me,
Yep.
Mr. Crane.
Yep, okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Ms. Lucy, please call the roll on this.
Ms. Finello. Yes. Mr. Charbonneau. Yes. Ms. Grant. Yes. Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larby. Yes. Mr. Marino. Yes. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. The next item is district-wide bathroom enhancement projects recommendation to award design services. Are we?
You guys have me all night.
Oh, my.
Hope you packed a sandwich. So tonight before you will be the recommendation to award the multi-school ADA restroom enhancements project. As this committee knows, but I feel comfortable sharing again, these types of projects are very near and dear to my heart. My son is a special education student, and I only wish that my own school district was taking on these sorts of challenges that the Pawtucket School District is. Having said that, this was a publicly bid project. We advertised in the Providence Journal. 2 firms submitted bids. I did want to mention that only one firm, Lerner, Lads, and Bartels of Pawtucket, Rhode Island, actually showed up to the pre-bid. It was a non-mandatory pre-bid, but they were the only group that did show up. And after review by myself, our team district stakeholders, we would recommend the award of the ADA enhancement projects to Lerner, Lads, and Bartels of Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I would also mention that their office is right across the street from Pullman. So if you need to find them, that's where to look. And I'd also like to draw your attention to one of the first lines in their packet is when they say that we understand that this project is to exceed ADA codes. They are well understood that this project is not just to provide code enhancements to comply with code. This is just to really create inclusive spaces.
The motion approved by Ms. Marino is seconded by Ms. Grant. Ms. Finello.
For you.
Sure.
So there were local architectural firms.
They are.
Did you ask them why we haven't heard from them yet?
I did.
They've done some gorgeous work.
So they have. I think it's a little intimidating getting into some schoolwork, especially in Pawtucket, where we are known for such kind of big projects. They're embracing this with open arms. As I said, they were the only person to attend the pre-bid. They met with a few of your principals on the pre-bid. They've been very impressive in their communication thus far, and they're eager to work with the district.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Charbonneau.
I'm missing what this is going to cost us.
This wasn't an MPA procurement. This was a full procurement, so we were not allowed to go out for pricing because it was qualifications only. If you guys approve LLB, we will then enter into negotiations with that vendor.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Ms. Lucy, please call the roll.
Ms. Finello. Yes. Mr. Charbonneau. Yes. Ms. Grant. Yes. Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larby. Yes. Mr. Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. The next item is Life Skill Suites review, discuss, and approve funding source. We have 3 in a row here. Okay, I got it. Review, discuss, and approve funding source.
I will yield to Dr. McWilliams.
Okay, Dr. McWilliams.
So, yeah, I guess you can say it. Yeah, you can say it. So, the life skills review discussed funding source, is for the kitchen and life skills in the administration building where we have the transition program, and then also at Jenks. And the recommendation by myself and our CFO is that we're looking at a cost of $500K, and we recommend that that come from capital.
Okay, there's a motion to approve, and like I said, there are 3 in a row here. This is to approve the funding source coming from capital. Then we are on the next one. The motion to approve by Ms. Bonello, seconded by Mr. Marino. Any discussion on approving the funding source? Ms. LaSuke, please call the roll on that.
Ms. Bonello. Mr. Charbonneau. Ms. Grant. Mr. Knight. Mr. Larrabee. Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes. The motion carries 7-0. So the next item is life skills suite, review, discuss, and approve OPM services.
Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Colliers is on the MPA 430. You asked us at the last committee meeting if we could take on this work. Obviously, I would love to lead this work for Colliers project leaders. The price for that would be $22,000.
Motion to approve the OPM services by Mr. Charbonneau, seconded by Ms. Bonello. Any discussion on this item? So please call the roll.
Ms. Bonello. Yes. Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant. Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee. Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. And I'm seeing a familiar name here. The life skills suite recommendation to award design services.
So thank you very much. So as you know, the scope of this effort is still being being designed or being thought by school department stakeholders, by school committee stakeholders. As such, we thought that the best way to proceed with this project would be to implement an initial design requirements phase prior to full service design work. This is something that we usually don't do on our smaller projects because usually the scope is pretty well set, right? It's a window replacement. We're going to replace the windows or something like that. In this case, requirements phase, we feel it's necessary to understand exactly what you all want out of these life skills suites. We brought this to Lerner, Lads and Bertels of Pawtucket because they were about to be awarded the work, the ADA bathroom enhancements project, and they showed a great deal of enthusiasm when we met them and during that walkthrough. They're also a local firm, so and they are on MPA 494A, which we were directed to go off MPA 494A. With that said, we would recommend the committee award architectural engineering services just for the design requirements phase of this project to LLB Architects of Pawtucket for $9,960. Once the full scope of the project is developed, depending on the MEP work, structural work, if any things like that, we would then negotiate a price. They put in their proposal between 8 and 10%, or 8 and 9%, which I believe the district is usually paying about 8% for architectural services.
Motion approved by Mr. Charbonneau, seconded by Ms. Bonello and Ms. Grant. Chris, just to clarify, so you're saying that you'd be coming back with another bid for the architectural services?
So yes, we would extend their, if you guys were happy with the work they were doing, if you were happy with the plan that they came up with, we would then ask them for a proposal to provide the RIDE design review services, SD, DD, CD, and we'd come back before this group and we'd ask your permission. Or if you wanted to go a different route, we could go a different route at that time.
Ms. Bonello and then Mr. Charbonneau.
Because they're doing the bathrooms, what is their staffing capabilities?
Off the top of my head, they have sufficient staff. Also, the principal is a member of the school building committee in his town, so he's pretty intimately aware with what goes on.
Mr. Charbonneau?
I'm just confused, and I probably should have asked for better clarification on the previous or a couple of items ago. But if we're listed on this item for recommendation to award design services, and we have a figure in here, how do we not have a figure for the other recommendation to award design services that was the prior item? I think I'm getting
sure. Yes.
So
I may be confusing myself.
Yeah, no, the only reason I'm jumping up is because this is a quasi-legal question. So when we go out for an RFQ for design services not using the pre-negotiated master price agreement in the state of Rhode Island, you are required to do qualifications-based selection, which this group has been through before, where essentially you rank the vendors. In this case, for the previous one, this was the top ranked vendor, as it were. And so the next phase would be to enter into negotiations, come to a price, and then bring that back to you. And that's what we're required to do by state law. When, however, you use the master price agreement, you can actually solicit prices themselves and then put that forward. So that's really the only difference, is the purchasing mechanism that was used to solicit the bids.
All right, so then I guess my question for Attorney Conley is, when we approve the recommendation to award design services on the previous item, are we locked in no matter what their price comes back at?
So if that, under that QBS qualified base selection, under that QBS model, which we were required to use for item G, for the reasons explained, you then negotiate the price. If we can't reach a price that we're satisfied with, we are not locked into that. But we do need to follow that process. It's qualification-based services. If, for instance, colleagues would come back to you and say, the price that they're offering us is not commensurate with the work or services to be provided. You still have to go through the QBS process to get another qualified base selection vendor and go through that. But the goal is under QBS is to get the most qualified and then use the services of your OPM to negotiate the very best price with the most qualified.
Yeah. Okay, thank you both.
Sure. So I see no further discussion on this item. This is the award design services. Ms. Lucy, please, are you good, Mr. Charbonneau?
I am.
Okay. Can you please call the roll on that?
Ms. Finello? Yes. Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino? Ms. Dubey?
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. So the next item is approval of independent contractors.
I'll take that one, Mrs. Devine. So,
oh, this is based on what we did at the last.
yes, from the last meeting. So you'll see in the box board, bold box square, that was from last meeting. You had asked for a running record. And so these are the additional independent contractors that we're bringing before you this evening.
Motion approved by Ms. Manolo, seconded by Ms. Grant. I thank you to Ms. Devine for adding the additional column.
Yes.
There, because it helps us a lot to figure out what they're doing. Ms. Manolo.
So these new, are any of these new vendors, are they vendors that we've had in our schools already?
Looking at the list. Looks like most of them, looks like all of them have been ones that we've used before.
Well, can we direct that question to Ms.
Yes,
Devine? Just so
I can
be
have it
prepared
sent
for
it,
it. Yes, thank you. Ms. Grant.
In regards to in the individual companies, as they're placed on this, do we go back and look at them to see if they've had the correct background BCIs and things like that, to make sure that when if a particular teacher or a particular nurse or a particular something, like I know, for example, Maxim, I know they do the checks, and they go down to the Attorney General's office. But for example, like say I'm not familiar with like one-on-one basketball, or hanging out with MS Skilla. Do we know, like, do we like have a packet?
Yes.
And then we kind of.
Yes, so there's a whole process that Ms. Devine does have. It includes an independent contractor agreement. It includes an annual BCI. So what I think what you're asking is, if we see these same vendors, these same independent contractors, are they having that annual BCI? Yes.
And to clarify, our legal counsel can weigh in on this, but this was at your direction to actually streamline this process so that they all are getting the same packet, the same forms to fill out, as opposed to, I guess, what we were doing before. Okay, Ms. Denola and Ms. Maria.
If they're working with our students, are they getting the national BCI?
Yes.
Okay, not just the local.
Ms. Maria.
Yeah. Question on this. So the individual doesn't have a DBA or a business name. Are we paying individual him or herself?
Oh, yeah, so it doesn't matter whether they're a business or a single person. And I just want to clarify too, that in order for them to get on this list, they've already been vetted.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you again to Ms. Devine for making this easier to understand, and I like the black box at the bottom. Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call on this.
Ms. Noel?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Knight? Mr. Larby? Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Doobie?
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. The next item is splitting up of classrooms in the case of absenteeism of a teacher. I'm going to pass this to Ms. Grant, who asked to have this item added to the agenda.
Yes. The reason I had asked that we have this on the agenda is because a few weeks ago it was brought to my attention that we had several classes that in one particular school building that did not have the proper staffing. So the classrooms were merged together. In this particular case, I'm not sure of all the details, but on a whole, the reason I'm bringing it up is because we're in this position now that we have lack of teachers, substitutes coming into our district, any district. And I think on a whole, we really need to start thinking about what's best for the students and for the teachers who are teaching these classrooms. And I think the first thing I want to do is, kind of offer our assistance. And is the way we are doing it, splitting these students up, really in everyone's best interest? Is that the way we should go about it? Should we try to come up with, work together as a group? You have a classroom and the classroom teacher next door is out. So you split the students up. Some teachers leave packets, some people leave, maybe work on their Chromebook or whatever. But then the students tend to sit in the back of the classroom, and the teacher will lead to teach their regular normal class. But there are students in that classroom who are not going to be participating in what that typical classroom is doing because they're not normally in that classroom. So now you might have a teacher for 2 days, 3 days. And I'm just really concerned about the splitting up of the classrooms. And if there is, I think one thing, I think what we need to do, because we're a district. So in regards to a district, I think we need to be one, meaning that, communication, we've all talked about this, needs to be better. And I think we all really need to be on the same page. And like I said, please, if anyone wants to chime in, but maybe, trying to, put our heads together and try to come up maybe with a better way of probably doing this. I just get more and more concerned that going forward, that our situation as a school district is going to get worse.
So, and I appreciate that concern, and you're raising a valid concern, because as you said, with classrooms already having to be split up at the beginning of the school year, basically first or second day of school, it is a concern. So historically, you're correct. What has happened is, just so the general public knows, when you, in the way it's been happening for many, many years, and like you said, just because it's happening that way doesn't mean that you can't think about
Classrooms would be split based on, you have a split list that a teacher prepares at the beginning of the school year, and that would include, hopefully, I don't know if you can hear me.
Thank you.
That would include
them preparing what would take place if that classroom has to be split. And what they do, what the teachers do and the administration does, is try to provide the classrooms within that same grade. So because we have now a continuum of curriculum and resources, I hear what you're saying is that maybe in the past, students would sit in the back. With that being said, there are times if you have 3 classrooms and 2 third grade teachers are out, well, obviously you're not going to be able to split them. You'll only be able to use one of those third grades. So what you're saying is absolutely correct in the fact of how it's been done, and why it's done that way is because of lack of staffing. And are we in a day and a time where staffing continues to be a problem? Yes. With that being said, on a day-to-day situation, you address it with the expectation that it's not a continuum of, like you said, a week or several days, because then you get into what we consider a long-term absence. And in that case, you know, that's where we need to look at addressing, well, how can that need best be addressed with staffing. That's the issue that we have, is that we have a lack of subs. We only have generally, probably, HR would have to correct me if I'm wrong, but about 60 subs for the whole district, and we have 16 schools. Splitting up of classrooms is generally done at the elementary, K through 5. And as you know, we did have a situation where we did have to do that with pre-K, actually had to do it again today. So I hear you. I believe that it is an issue, and to have this issue early on in the school year. As to a solution, I know when the pre-K teachers met today, they actually talked about the same situation, and they talked about that is in the best interest for those pre-K teachers to split up the class amongst themselves, as long as they stay within the range of the number of students and the teacher or adult ratio. So that works possibly at pre-K, unless you have all the pre-K teachers out. Now, in an extreme situation, such that we had on Monday, it's basically all hands on deck. So anybody in the school department, in the district office who needs to go into a classroom, and we did do that on Monday. We had several administrators, coordinators in those classrooms doing that. Can we put our heads together? Absolutely. I welcome anybody that would like to meet and discuss that. I don't know how we can procure more subs. We've got it out there. We're doing the best that we can, where we have connections with the universities. We're all working very hard, talking to our neighbors, our friends, and trying to get them to, invest in our schools and invest in young people. And so with that being said, I think it's really, really important as we move forward in a district, when you're trying to procure people to be a part of your district, to, you mentioned communication. I think communication is key. We've said that several times, but I also think the way we communicate and the way we send messages has got to shift to a positive message, because people will only come to a district that they're wanted and that they're respected.
Dr. Williams, is the RIDE regulation around substitutes that they did during COVID, that like associate's degree? They made a change during COVID where they said that you could substitute with an associate's degree. I'm seeing some nods. Is that still the case, or did they shift back to the bachelor's degree?
I'm going to refer that to HR, Assistant Superintendent Babbitt.
The change that they made during COVID does still exist. So it's an associate. It's 2 years of schooling, but you have to have so many educational credits. So ideal candidates are students who are in educational tracks that are like Rhode Island College.
So it's a bachelor's degree, even if you don't have any, so bachelor's degree, you don't have to have any education experience. It could just be bachelor's. Associate's degree, if you have some kind of, so it's not associate, it's 2 years of college. So so someone who's on track. And just to clarify, you say we are in contact with the colleges and universities?
Yes.
To capitalize on that, it's not a loophole, on that change in regulation that has happened. Ms. Grant.
In regards to preschool, what is that ratio?
So the preschool is very complicated. It falls into two type of sections. You have the state pre-Ks, which the ratio is 2 to 20. So 2 adults, that's minimum, 2 adults to 20 students. Now, when you have the integrated classrooms, which those integrated classrooms include students with IEPs, you have to keep the balance of no more than 50%, right? Correct, no more than 50%. So, and the ratio is a minimum of 2 to 15 students. That's the minimum.
So when we combine a class, but that's 2 to 15. So, but that's a classroom with a special educator.
Yeah, it could be the teacher and the teaching assistant. So I think where I think you may be asking is, so if you are, we don't have that 15 yet, but if you have that 15, you would not want to add to that 15 if it's an integrated classroom.
Okay.
So, and I think I did share with the committee that we did on the second day of school add to that 15, but we had 3 adults. Actually, at some points of the day, we had actually 4 adults in there. But the goal, because depending on the makeup of each class, what you don't want to do is have one adult with, say, 7 students by themselves. You always want to have a second person, a second set of eyes. It's for the safety of not only the students, but also the adults. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so the class we had last week, the pre-K,
yes,
we had 2 classes last week that we combined. There were no teacher assistants, correct?
So the absence of those were not teachers, it was teacher assistants. So the morning AM, the AM class had 3 adults all the time with 21 students, but in between that time, there was, because it's a 2.5-hour class, there was, the Dr. Gifford was going in and out, and also we added in a building TA for personal care. So at some points there was 4, but it was, and then the afternoon class was 3 adults with 10 students. It was 10 students.
10, 11, and it was 1 teacher and 2 teacher assistants.
And Dr. Williams, have you been in touch with your colleagues to find out if other districts handle this? I mean, because we know that across the state, across the country, we're dealing with shortages of substitutes, shortages. As Ms. Grant said, I think that like I can't off the top of my head think of another option besides just telling parents we don't have a teacher for you can't send your kids to school, which obviously is not a feasible solution. But just because I can't think of something right now doesn't mean that other districts haven't come up with other options.
Yes, I have actually asked my colleagues, and they're saying they're seeing and having the same issues, and also reaching out to RIDE. They're hearing the same issues from other districts. And I will say that when I did reach out to RIDE about this particular situation, that they applauded the way in which we handled it, and it's very, very pleased with the pre-K program at RIDE. So, you know, it's a challenge, but you're right. It's something that we, you know, if we can get, if any, you know, I'm open to having others come together and maybe brainstorm some ideas that are outside the box. I mean, if you all want to get BCI checks and come and volunteer.
No, Mr. I thank you for bringing this up. I know that my daughter went through this last year, and I can count on multiple hands how many times she came home and I said, "Did you have a substitute today?" And she said, "No, they were split up." And yeah, so I mean, it was for that entire class for many classes for her 4th grade year. And so I understand these challenges. And I hope that we can continue to think about creative solutions to this.
And I think a couple of other things we have to remember too is, I understand the aspect of all hands on deck, but what ends up happening in regards to spinning up classrooms, we have to remember is that in certain things, it can affect other students that aren't even in these classrooms. For example, if you have your OTs, PTs, and speech in the building that are offering to willing to help, you have to remember that they're probably being taken away from another child, maybe in another grade during at that time. So, I think, we have to make sure of that. We have to make sure we want the least distraction for the least amount of children that we can do. And I think we, anyone who has had children, I think we have to really think about the reality. I understand we have these laws and the way things are written, but think about it realistically. And maybe we can do this for one day, but think about, when a spouse or goes out and they leave you home with 3 typical children, under the age of 5. And maybe you might have, 18 kids in a class. Some might have IEPs, some might have a special need, and you might have maybe 2 teachers in the classroom. I would think it would have to be very difficult to keep it under control. And, some of these kids are quick, like I said, I think, it is something maybe, I know our schools do reach out to parents, we have the PTs and things like that, but maybe it is, something more that we do try to, maybe work with, maybe a church or something to see. I know sometimes at the hospitals, people will come in and rock babies. They volunteer to rock babies. But me and these children are not babies. I'm not saying that at all. They are children. But, in different circumstances, maybe we could work with people to have someone come in and, maybe take 3 children in a corner and read to them for a little while or something. So I definitely think this is something that we really do need to kind of work together as a complete district to work on, because we definitely, we don't want to burn out our teachers. We don't want parents to feel that their children aren't receiving the education that they're supposed to be getting. And like Ms. Phoebe said, when the children come home, you ask them, and they're like, yeah, I guess what up again, or something like that. You just don't want to discourage them. And, and I know it is a difficult position, but I do think this is something we really need to keep on our radar and try to work out.
And Ms. Grant, I think you really hit the nail on the head with that idea of the ripple effect of what it means for a high school teacher who every single time they have, this period that they were supposed to be doing, planning, they're instead covering a class. And I experienced that as a high school teacher and how it drains you day after day. And as an elementary school teacher, to have additional students in your class day after day, or as you said, to now not have students getting, this need or that need because of how we have to kind of triage on a regular basis. And so I do hope that Mr. Charbonneau gave us optimistic words yesterday that we are coming around a corner maybe with our inflation and prices, and maybe, we're going to see a lot of people graduating from college soon and coming into the teaching profession and being very excited about it and growing our own within.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I did want to make this comment because you just refreshed my memory on that. When we were talking about the fact that we need to really, as a society, as a community, really focus on what an educator does, because it's a 24/7 job. Teachers will tell you that it's a 24/7 job, no matter what position that you're in. And so I think we need to raise the level of understanding and appreciation and respect, and that will have a trickle down effect to our students, But with that being said, going back to the community grant, that's a piece of that. There's a goal in there to have the education pathway, which we're going to be starting in the fall at the high school, to bring that down at James Middle School. So I think, like I said, and I said, and Mrs. Grant said, it's a district thing. So I think we have to stop looking at the ways as a district, how we message, and thinking of the whole piece and how we want to address that. So.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Ms. Grant, it's you again. We have health and safety needs and concerns for special education students.
So this one's a tough one. I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm going to try to explain and talk with you guys as clear as I can. Everyone knows special education is my passion. I'm all about fairness, equity, making sure our students have what they need. Unfortunately, on September 3rd, I received a phone call. And the reason I'm bringing this up, and I asked for, there were several conversations about how we would handle this. I'm bringing this up is because I wanted my colleagues to know about this. And because of OMA, I had to talk to our attorney. It wasn't something that we could talk about just freely. And it's very concerning. And there were a couple of ways we could handle it, and this is how we had decided might be handled best. But on September 3rd, I received a phone call describing to me that there was a new classroom at one of our elementary schools. The classroom was students who had been within the district prior. They were younger students, and they were, it was going to be a self-contained classroom. The person who had reached out to me had reached out because they were very concerned about the students in this classroom. The reason they were concerned is that they felt that the particular students in this classroom were of a specialty. And that there were certain things that weren't provided the first week of school. I have not followed up. I know, and I'm not sure where it stands right this second, but I do know these children, some of them were nonverbal. They didn't speak, which in that case, if you are familiar with a child with any need, that if a child is nonverbal, the child, it leads to a lot of frustration. So, of course, you walk into your classroom the first day of school, I'm assuming, and, you got a new teacher, you left your mom, and, how it goes or whatever. But there's no way to get across to anyone how you're feeling, what you want, what you need. From what I understand, the teacher was there for a couple of days. And unfortunately, the teacher, for some reason, and I don't know if it's something I could really share, but they weren't there on the third day. The school building didn't have some of the necessities these children needed. I'm not sure how the transition took place. From what I understand, this particular classroom of these children did come from a different school. But there was a classroom that they thought that might fit them better, which is completely fine. We move students all the time. But the problem is there needs to be a plan in place. And it doesn't seem like there was a plan in place. It seems like first the teacher didn't really know what this class really was, or what the makeup of the class was. So that could have been one of the first problems. It seems like one of the other problems is that the principal or the principal who's in charge of the school did request some things that they needed for the school. And one of them was a changing table. And I think we all know there are a lot of students or children who have special needs that unfortunately, don't reach certain milestones that other students reach. In this school, the principal requested a changing table. And to me, there's a difference. These children they're not babies. So, you don't get a KinderCare, or there are proper tables for students. If the children weigh over 50 pounds, I think it's just a standard across the board that no one should be lifting them, whether it be a nurse or whether it be a TA or it be anyone. So if that's the case with the students, then there should have been a lift. The bathroom that they were assigned it was a teacher's bathroom. It was a teacher's bathroom. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with the teacher's bathrooms, but the teacher's bathrooms in our schools are kind of small. You walk in, the toilet's to the left. There's probably right next to it a sink, a mirror, and in this particular one, when the door opened, there was a table, and on that table were diapers, pull-ups, and some things, but the door kind of went right to it, and I think the table was probably about this wide, the length. So then the wall was there. So I guess I asked myself a couple of questions. I, as a parent, is this what I would want for my child at school? We send our children to school thinking that they're going to be safe, their health and safety is going to be taken care of, and that they're going to be treated as all children are. Not having visuals and not having ways for the children to communicate, to let you know, is huge. And my hope would be that within a certain or a correct amount of time, that the information would have been transferred over. But it should have been transferred over and provided so those children had the same type of first, second, and third day as everyone else. And they didn't. And, I think a couple of things. If we have typical children in a school, and I know it's a little different, but it's not a lot different. And I think we need to treat all of our children the same. If there was a problem at the school and the bathrooms were not working, the school committee would have been notified, the school probably would have been closed, the parents would have been called. I didn't expect the school to be closed, but I would have expected someone maybe to give us a heads up. The children's rights you know, to have the proper changing room. You know, if you don't change a baby or and I use a baby because most people who don't have an experience with an older child who has special needs, you know, the same issues to us as adults with making sure that our health needs, whether we're wiping ourselves or making sure, you know, they can all lead to the same place. They can lead to infection. And we don't want to be that cause of that for these children. So it really disappointed me that these are children who have already been in our district. And again, I think some of it goes back to communication. You know, we have a small group of, we don't have a lot of OTs, PTs, and speech, but you know, they do have small meetings and they do IEPs and this information is available. And I'm very concerned why this information was not available. And why, when these children came to school on that Wednesday, weren't provided the same services that the other children did. And when I say other children, I mean typical children. You know, and it's disturbing. It was also brought to my attention and in this too, that it had come up that what would also be provided for the staff in this classroom would be protective gear. Mouth guards, I guess, arm guards, but what kind of protection was given to the other kids in the school, in the classroom? You know, so if I can hurt Jay, can I hurt Johnny? Of course. So, you know, we do these, we change these things and we change these children's environment, but then we didn't provide them with the stuff they need. And I have to be honest with you, there have been some other things in the district. And I reached out to Dr. McWilliams last week, and I asked her about the other schools, elementary schools in our district, and if they had what they needed. She had Dr. Andre reach out to me. I explained to him what I was looking for. To this day, I still have not received a call back from him letting me know that information. That particular day, I asked 6 questions, about 6 questions, and there were people of authority who made these decisions to have these students moved. No one could answer any of my questions. I gave them a deadline of 6 o'clock that night to email me. These are the people who made the decisions to move these children. There was no transition. There was no changing tables for them. There was no visuals. On Friday, there was no teacher. You know, I gotta be honest with you. You know, I don't know what we're doing wrong in this district. And this really disturbs me. And it disturbs me that we have in some of the positions, the wrong people in the wrong positions. And I firmly believe that our special education department is going in the wrong direction. And it concerns me greatly. We are a school committee that has always shared with our district that we're here, that whatever you need, let us know. Mr. Charbonneau, at the end of last year, Orford's made a motion that we provide money. We're trying to make bathrooms. We're trying to update bathrooms. We're trying to make these changes. Even myself, I've gone to the department and I said, listen, make these wish lists. You know, talk to your talk to your staff. You know, we have this money, let's make these things. But if you think about it, if we were proactive, and like I said, I did speak to a couple of people, and I was made aware that some of this stuff was requested, but it wasn't given. And I don't understand why. I know myself, but I would think as being an educator and someone in charge of a particular department, you would want to be over-prepared than under-prepared. And it really does. It saddens me that we allowed students to come into our school and we were not ready for them. In many ways, we weren't ready for them. We set them up to fail. And what I mean by that is, you know, a child, frustration brings on behavioral issues. So a child might not be a behavioral child, but can't communicate that I want to take the ball from Judy to play with myself. So instead of having a visual to point to, just going to grab the ball and take the ball. And if Judy keeps it, well, maybe I'm going to bite her. You know, so I feel we caused an environment for that classroom that was really unnecessary, because like I said, I think this is a school committee that has shared with the superintendent, or have always shared with everyone, that if you guys need anything, then you need to come to us. And I think this was an ideal case of that not happening. And like I said, you know, this is big. If you ask me, this is big. Like I said, the parents weren't even informed that when I had gone into the classroom, the parents at the point hadn't even been informed that the teacher was no longer in that classroom and their kids were going to have someone else. So again, communication, you know, these kids have routines. They have routines. They need to know what they're getting themselves into. And it's, you know, it's not fair to the teachers. It's not fair to the staff. And, you know, we as a district, when we make changes, we need to make these changes and make sure we have everything in place for them. And like I said, it's very, very concerning. And like I said, I haven't received that answer. So Diana, I will be reaching out to you, and I will be visiting the schools over the next couple of weeks to find out on my own, to see what they have and what they don't, to make sure that all of the children have a proper place and are being treated with dignity and respect. So I just, like I said, I wanted to make sure. I think a lot of things sometimes happen in our district that we talk about it, but we don't proceed, meaning that it just kind of gets let go, it gets moved, or things change. And I think, you know, I can speak for all of the school committee members. I think we do this because we felt that there needed to be changes in the district, in the schools, and we wanted to be the people to make the change. And I think we have done that. I think we've done a really good job. But I think we have a lot more to do. And I think sometimes because of the OMA laws and certain things, we can't communicate to each other what we see or what's been taking place. But like I said, when, you know, I do want to commend, you know, I don't know who the person is who called me to let me know, but they made me aware. And on Tuesday, you know, with the long weekend, again, I went right out to the classroom. And what I had seen was not just unacceptable, but I feel like these children weren't even taken into consideration at all. And you know, one of the questions I did ask, and I asked if the typical children were all set. And I used typical, and everyone looked at me like, yeah, they're fine. But then I had this classroom of special needs kids who really needed to be taken care of the most, probably, but that needed the most care. And they were. And it just, like I said, it concerns me about the direction some of our departments are going in. And I think these conversations have to, it was hard to have this conversation. You know, it could have been any of our children. And it was hard to have this discussion because it probably could have been my child more than anyone else's. But you know, when I put my child on the bus in the morning and she goes to school, we as parents, we trust them to these, to the school, to the district, to do the right thing, to take care of the children, to make sure they get what they need. And like I said, I think these conversations between all of us need to continue to keep happening. And I think we really need to talk about what actually does take place and the things that we might not be there for. Because I think there's a lot of things we don't know. And like I said, I was really happy that someone had brought this to my attention. And like I said, over the next couple of weeks, I'll be reaching out to Diana. I will be going to these schools to check them out, to make sure, as you all know too, you know, last year I'd gone to Tolman and I just couldn't even believe in an OT-PT room, we didn't even have a lift. Like, these are men, young men and women. And, you know, I just think I don't think it's time. I think it's past time that we do the right thing. And that, you know, if you ask me, I think every classroom or every school should have been walked to make sure everyone had what they needed. You know, and like I said, the principal did tell me that she did reach out. She reached out 3 weeks prior to ask. And like I said, I would rather ask for proper things for these children to make sure that, you know, they were treated like individuals. They were treated, their needs were taken care of. And, you know, it didn't happen. And, you know, I know it does take time to get some of the proper things in place. And I know since then something has been ordered. I don't know if it's come in because there hasn't been any follow-up with me on it. But I do know that a changing table was brought over from another school. But it was a big changing table. And these kids aren't babies. They're children. They're children who deserve the proper equipment when they come into our schools. They deserve the proper education, and they deserve the proper people watching out for them. And like I said, I just wanted to, you know, kind of make you guys aware of this, and let you know that, you know, there are things that go on in our district that we aren't made aware of. You know, our people determine what we know and what we don't know. And I think this is something we should have known. And like I said, I really do question the direction this department is going in. And even, when I spoke to a few people, I over and over said, why didn't anyone just reach out to us? Why didn't anyone reach out to us? We would have been there. We would have gotten the help that you needed. We would have made sure. And again, I didn't receive any answers. So, like I said, I just wanted to let you guys know what was going on. And hopefully, we can continue this discussion as a group and try to continue to make the best decisions for the district and continue to make the best decisions and the safest decisions for our students, because that's why we do it. So I just wanted to share that.
And Ms. Finolo?
Yes. Okay. So first I want to say, Mrs. Grant, I appreciate your passion. I appreciate your love and concern and care, but I want to say to you that we all have the same love and concern for our students. And I understand what happens oftentimes is that because you're so passionate about it, you don't have all the facts and your emotion takes over. And I can say that because I do have the facts and I have the emails and I have the texts, and I will share those with the committee after this evening, okay? So I appreciate. Now, the thing is, when a special education department makes a determination of where students are going to be placed, they do it based on programming and based on the best, least restrictive environment for those students. The students in the class that you're talking about was a specialized class. We don't refer to them as self-contained anymore. They're a specialized class. They were not medically fragile, and they are mild to moderate, and some of them are developmentally delayed. And as you said, they do have some, they're nonverbal. Not all of them, but most of them are nonverbal. When you have a situation like that, some of those students are in the situation, they're K-2, where they might need some personal care, which we would refer to as toileting. This does not mean that a second grader needs a change in cable. So we're having this discussion openly and honestly, because what happens is when you get passionate and emotional about something, you take your own experience and you project that into a situation, which unfortunately, Mrs. Grant, you did in this situation. You came into the building, you directed staff, you told us what we were going to do and when we were going to do it. And I apologize that I'm being strong and firm, because this has got to stop. I am the superintendent. You hired me, this committee fully hired me to be the superintendent, and it's about time you let me do the job. So, with that being said, Mrs. Grant, I have all the documentation. I understand your passion. We have the same love and care for these students as you do, okay? So don't sit here and say you weren't responded to, because I'll be sending that communication to the full school committee tonight. What I hear in your passion is that you want to see certain things that you believe should be in place. And I'm not saying that all of that is incorrect. We always want to improve our programs and enhance our programs. So I would appreciate the statements being, let's improve, let's do above and beyond, which is what we are doing. But to sit here and speak to the general public and say that we are not providing an appropriate education for our special needs students is unacceptable and untrue. Now, let's go back. When you talked about last year, I looked up, yes. Well, I will, yes, I agree. This is not meant as any personal insult. This is meant to communicate truth with data behind it. So I went back to last year when we talked about special needs. we had two different meetings on December 14th and in January, talking about our special needs students. We all agreed, the school committee agreed, to put funding, additional funding to support our students. And that funding was put in place, additional supports. Now, when we identified those schools, we identified the schools, not all school buildings, not to say that this committee couldn't decide to do certain things in all school buildings, but certain buildings were addressed, and the language of those meetings indicates it was to be addressed in schools where those students who are specialized in a particular situation of what they needed. So when you're talking about toileting or personal care, those schools are Tolman, Jenks, Curvin, and Curtis. Now, in the ESSA 3 funds, if you recall, and you talked about going to the district, and we did go through the district. We did this last year. We went building to building with our OPM, and we looked at those classrooms, and we just approved them tonight, ADA enhanced bathrooms. So we did not identify the particular school with a K through 2 last year, but it was included in the ESSA 3. With that being said, that means that we can have those programs in our school if we have a situation where students need a personal care or a changing table. But to this day, there aren't students in the particular building that you've identified or we've talked about that need what you demanded that we put in there, which was in there by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 hours after you left. So in a situation when you don't have all the facts, you have not read all the IEPs, you don't know, you inserted yourself into a situation and talked about personnel matters, school operations, and accommodations, and staffing moved on those things, and then going back and reflecting on it and say, why did we do this? So I understand your passion, I understand your concern, and I understand your care and love for all of our students, whether they're typical or they're specialized, because I can sit here and tell you that myself and my team have that same passion.
Mr. Chavana?
All right. When are the classes, superintendent, when are the class rosters available to the teachers?
So generally, class rosters are available prior to the job assignment. But what happens is when you're talking about a specialized class, that the enrollment of that class might change, and actually in all the classes, it could change over the summer. So the enrollment in this particular class was set probably somewhere in July.
So we should have known the
makeup of the class.
The makeup of the class by mid-July, right? And to Ms. Grant's point, I think Ms. Grant said September 3rd, we had students in that classroom who required visuals, but we had no visuals. Is that accurate?
So I can tell you when we visited the class on Tuesday, and I did not visit the class prior to getting the call from Mrs. Grant on the Saturday of the Dragon Boat races, which was the 3rd. So there were visuals in the classroom, yes. And there were staffing in the classroom. I think it was referred to that there wasn't a teacher in the classroom. There was a teacher in the classroom. There was a change in personnel, which was a personnel matter. So there was a change in the teacher, but there was always a teacher in the classroom.
But at the beginning, I'm sorry, I confused the first day of school. At the first day of school, did we have visuals in the classroom?
And I would have to check on that because I was not there on the first day of school.
I think, and I'm going to have a lot of questions like this, so I don't know if you want me to email them to Ms. List or email them to you directly, but because, and Ms. Grant, I appreciate your passion, your advocacy, and I'm going to go with you on those scores because a lot of what I heard tonight is concerning. I understand we have to have the tools in the classrooms to start the school year and go from there. I mean, this committee has allocated resources after resources after resources to to make sure all our students have the equipment and the supplies that they need. So to hear that we started the first day of school, if we knew the roster of that classroom in July, and we started the first day of school at that building with that classroom with no visuals, and we knew the students required them, then yeah, well, you know, then we drop that one, and we need to own it if that's the case. The request by the principal, has that been fulfilled, do we know, for the changing table?
The request by, the principal did not request to meet a changing table. Mrs. Grant directed us to put a changing table. So within 2 hours of Mrs. Grant's visit, and actually our visit, a changing table was placed in an adjacent classroom across from there. But I will state that the teacher did attempt to use the changing table, and it was not appropriate. So it's not being used. And another one has been ordered for the bathroom that was identified with a Hoyer lift. But at this time, none of those students would be using that.
Why would we provide protective gear? I think Ms. Fran indicated the
protective gear for teachers. So oftentimes if you're in certain specialized classrooms, you'll have protective gear for teachers. I would have to check on that.
I think Ms. Grant's point was we provided it for the teachers, but not the peers of the students in the classroom, well, not the entire students in the classroom. Is that?
So no, and again, I will clarify and get that message out to the whole committee, but normally in this particular classroom, considering the makeup of these students, it's not like they need mouth guards or arm guards or things like that. And normally,
so why would we provide it to the teacher?
So generally in a classroom that is a specialized classroom, protective wear is available for staff.
Okay.
And I will follow up on
that. A couple of the process for how do we notify families if there's a change at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, or the end of the year in the teacher in the classroom?
That's usually done by the school administration. And I will follow up with that too as well, if that wasn't done. I can't say.
Did I jot that note down? You had said the parents didn't know that the teacher had left?
Yes, on September 3rd.
I was trying to write as fast as I could.
That's okay. On September 3rd, the principal had stated that, you know, she at this point was the one who had to notify them that there was a new teacher that particular day.
So to clarify, the administrator notified.
She was going to notify them.
And that's the process we follow?
So if there's a change in staffing, that would be the school administration that would communicate to us that particular situation that, you know, your teacher's not here, there's another teacher coming in, yes.
And do we know if that occurred here? We don't, right?
I can find out.
Okay.
I just wanted to just say that, just kind of, yeah, some of this question. So just so you know, I specifically asked when I had gone into the classroom if there were any children in the class who wore a brief, AKA a diaper. And the teacher on the 3rd told me that she had one student in that class who did. And that is correct.
Just because a student's wearing a brief does not mean that they need a changing table, though. I can speak as a school principal when I was at Potter and kindergarten students came in, and even a first grader came in, and the parent had them in that, and they used the regular bathroom. They just used that. That was more of a security. In reaching out, I believe the principal and the teacher reached out to the parent. In that particular case, it was a parent's choice. So I think it's important to know and understand that if a student is wearing a pull-up, that does not mean that that second grader or first grader or whatever needs to lay down on a changing table and be changed, because they did attempt to do that. The teacher did attempt to do it because she was directed to do it by you, Ms. Grant, and it did not work out well for the student. And the student now is using, is using.
So,
Mr. Sharma, do you have any questions?
Yeah, but I gotta get this together. I'll email to, Ms. Liz.
Okay, and those answers will be sent back to both of you. Business like that. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr.
so
Miller.
before summer break, we tasked Dr. Andre to ensure that all our special education classrooms had all of the equipment that they needed. Dr. Andre?
That they ordered, you mean from the order that we did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can respond to that. So that was an allotment of funds that the school committee did go, I believe, vote on, and it was called a wish list, I believe. It was I think we called it a wish list, and that has been in progress. With that being said, that includes supplies, materials, and equipment. But I want to make it clear that when you talk about equipment, as Mrs. Grant referred to, you could be talking about changing tables, you could be talking about Hoyer lifts and changing tables, and adapting classrooms, and adapting stalls to put those up. But normally, in like I said, in the meeting minutes from previous meetings, it indicates it's for those buildings that are housing those students that need that accommodation. So that doesn't mean that the committee, if you so choose as a collective body, to put a Hoyer lift and a changing table in every single building, every single bath, at least one in a bathroom in every single building. Do I think that's wise and appropriate? I personally don't, but if that's something you choose to do, you certainly can do that. It was identified to be for those specialized classrooms where, as it was referred to, that you think that students need to be changed in that manner. And in this particular case, this particular classroom doesn't warrant that. But as I stated, in ESSA 3, when we did the walks last year, we identified that building, because of the air quality, because it's a one level, because it would be a place that maybe could have that type of program. That's one of the buildings that will have the ADA enhanced bathrooms that we approved tonight. So
the question is now, where are those students? Are they still in that classroom?
Which students?
The students that Ms. Grant had identified.
So when you, okay, so the K through 2 students are still in the same location. All their IEP needs and all their services are being provided. It's a specialized classroom, and there are no students in there that need the type of personal care that I think Mrs. Grant identified that she thought that they needed. So they are still there, and they have a teacher, and they've had a teacher, but there was a change in teachers within, I believe, 48 hours.
And they have all of visuals and manipulatives that they should have in that classroom.
I can certainly check that they have all and above and beyond to make sure that they have more than what they need, and certainly I can do that. But I can tell you that the day I visited, they did.
I just want to make sure, because that was when she was talking about it, the first question in my mind was, where are our kids? And in what conditions are they being served? Because if we are underserving, we are degrading.
Yeah, and we're not, and
that's not acceptable.
And we are not underserving, and we are not degrading, and I always want to improve on our program. So we make sure that we have an appropriate setting, appropriate conditions, and everything that they need, and we will make sure that they have above and beyond.
Okay, thank you. Someone will do that tomorrow?
We will get that rolling.
Thank you.
So I think,
Sorry, I'm sorry. Did you? You okay with Mr. Knight going first?
Yeah,
Mr. Knight.
I'll wait till she's done.
Okay, Ms. Grant.
just one thing. So I did ask for, just to clarify a couple of things. The only thing I have not been answered back to yet, that I did ask like maybe 5 or 6 questions. No one had provided answers that day. I asked to have them by 6 o'clock, just so I can know what was going on.
You did get them by 6 o'clock, Mr. Smith.
I did, except for one question. like I said, that I have not been, it was about the other schools and if the other schools had what they needed. Dr. McWilliams stated to me that she would have Dr. Andre contact me, and he contacted me, and he said that he needed to check with them. In regards to, in regards to children who have disabilities, sometimes, a lot of times, these children cannot properly take care of themselves. And when a child does wear, whether it's a pull-up or a brief, it's our responsibility as the adult, when we take them off and we change them, that we clean these children properly. And unfortunately, with a child standing up in a room that probably goes from here to maybe here, and there's a table, a toilet, a sink in it, it's not appropriate. It isn't appropriate. It's, we say that we don't, at points we say, we don't label or call classrooms certain things. But then we have teacher pools that have classrooms like at Curtis that say that they're ASD classrooms. So I find that when I ask how something like this happens and the teacher isn't aware, and I'm told that we don't label, but then we have pool notices that teachers come to bid on positions, and the 2022-23 classroom pool notice has classrooms labeled. I guess,
No, I'd like to respond to that. And we're really moving towards using the language of specialized classrooms and those job assignment notices. And I think it's a good thing. And I think we will be doing this going forward to make sure that the classroom makeup or the description is there for someone who wants to enter into an agreement to take that class is a better way of addressing it than, as you stated, stating, what a particular need is or a disability or being differently abled. I did want to refer back that I did text you the answer to your question, but I did say that Dr. Andre would follow back up with you to confirm.
You had answered me the question on the IEPs, the Hirsch one, but I didn't get the answer.
We can go over it later.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't get the one that I had talked to Dr. Andre last, and I didn't receive it. So that's fine. That's okay.
I'm a little concerned. This school committee has one thing by Title 16. Our duty is to manage the school system, passing our ability to manage to the administrator, in this case, Dr. McWilliams. We have no other controls whatsoever other than firing Dr. McWilliams, which I don't think is a real good idea right now. We've got to stop micromanaging this damn district, excuse my language. We have to let this district be run the best of its abilities. If we have specific complaints, we have to discuss them and talk about them. But going into a classroom and telling a teacher or a principal, get this right away, is out. That's not our purview. I'm sorry. That's not our job. Our job is to oversee what's going on, not to tell people what to do. Thank you.
That's great.
I'd just like to respond. Mr. Knight, you weren't there that day. So
I'm sorry?
I said you weren't there that day. So you don't.
Excuse me, I made a general statement. I didn't throw any shade or anything else. This isn't a back and forth.
Right, but
that's a statement. Let's get out of it. We've been on it long enough.
When I went into that school that day, the only reason I asked Dr. McWilliams to meet me at the school because I did. Like I said, I received a phone call, an anonymous phone call from someone who worked at the school, who's very concerned about the health and safety needs of those children. If someone brings that to my attention and I do not know what is taking place, then I need to bring it to her attention. And then we need to go in there. I am the chair of the special education department.
No, you're not.
A special ed committee. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I apologize. And this is it was, like I said, it was something that was brought to my opinion, that was brought to my attention. The principal had told me that she had ordered 3 weeks prior, had notified the special education department that she needed a changing table, and she never received it. And, you know, Mr. Knight, you can sit there and, state that, we shouldn't micromanage, but if someone does bring something to our attention and it has to do with the health and safety of our students, we should know about it. And we should know about what's going on in our district. And unfortunately, when we share things, it's very difficult to share things. And the only way to let your constituents know what's going on and what you've seen and what you were told by particular people there. I continuously asked how all this could happen over and over. I said, this is what we need. This is what we need. I did not tell them that they needed to get it right that second. But the principal thought it was something they needed also. Why would she order it if she didn't think she needed it? So for you to sit here and, kind of lecture me, like I said, you weren't there. I know you say it's a statement, but right, and what I said.
You said, I told them they needed this.
Well, I told them they needed it if the principal.
So Mr. Knight has made a point, Ms. Grant has made a point. Are there any other comments on this topic? At the time, Mr. Jarman.
Certainly a passionate discussion, but I think Ms. Grant has brought up some concerns that we need answers to. I think I don't know what the mechanism is if we put it on a future agenda but I think, and I've asked a couple of questions, I'll send some more as follow-up. Because listen, we have an obligation to every student in the district. And some of what I've heard from Ms. Grant tonight is more than concerning. And I know Superintendent McWilliams has shared some back, but I think for me at least, to be able to assess what happened and how people responded, I need to have a lot more answers than I do as I sit here right now.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no further discussion on this item, we'll move on to discussion items. Monthly vendor reports, August 2022, work order summary, August 2022, enrollment, suspension, expulsion reports. Yep, Ms. Grant.
The current enrollment, do we have a policy and a procedure in regards to students who want to transfer to other schools?
Yes, we have.
And what the protocol and what they have to, and do we have a deadline that it has to be reached by?
So Mr. Larby can answer, or I know as former policy chair that we do have a policy. It can be accessed on our policy manual, and I believe it's called transfer of students.
Yeah, I haven't come across the policy yet during my time, but I'm pretty sure.
And we can get that sent out to the committee so they can review what that. I mean, it's on the website, but yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? We're on superintendent update.
All right, well, good evening again, everyone. It's been a interesting evening, but good conversation. I'd like to thank the teachers, thank the staff, thank all the staff for getting us off the ground, opening our buildings. It's not just the first day of school, it's actually what goes on before the beginning of school. There was so many activities in our school buildings with jump starts, barbecues, welcome back events. And I appreciate the fact that all of our staff take time, even prior to the school opening, to make sure that our students are welcomed. And I think that makes a big difference in starting that first day. So I just want to thank them for that.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to school committee member updates, Ms. Grant.
I just want to, welcome everyone back, and I hope everyone has a good year. And I think we as a district need to do better. And again, last night, the district has voted me back in, and I will be here for 2 more years. So my intention is to make sure that we do good by these students and that we do good by our teachers. Because like always, we've stated that our children and our teachers and our staff do deserve the best. And we need to make sure that we have the right people in the right positions at all times. And, I think going forward, you might be hearing a little bit more from me. So have a good night.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to make a comment about, because it seems like we all talk about communication and the importance of communication. And, but in order to effectively communicate, there's got to be a mutual respect among the people trying to communicate. And if somebody if it's top down heavy, that's no good. If it's bombs being thrown from the other side of the road, that's no good. And we just I just experienced the summer, in a campaign that was the worst since I've lived in Pawtucket. And if we're going to move beyond that, it's going to take a concerted effort by everybody involved, not just the members of this committee, not just the superintendent, not just the union leadership, everybody involved. Because that's what people are going to measure us by. We can sit here all day and go back and forth and turn this every night into a screaming match. I think Ms. Grant raised some legitimate, serious concerns. I think they demand that answers are provided to this committee. And I trust that the superintendent's going to provide those answers to us. And then it will be up to this committee to assess the answers and either set a path forward or be accepting of the answers as is, or whatever the case may be. But we tend to let the conversation deteriorate into one that is rife with condescending and it's not healthy. And our kids are paying attention, our kids are watching, and we're all in it for the right reasons. And I think the one thing you can unequivocally say is that everybody in this room wants to see the best for the Pawtucket School Department. We may have a difference of opinion on how we get there, but the fact that we differ in opinion should be a strength to us and not this constant source of back and forth. I mean, I agree, Ms. Grant, we've got to do better. You know what? But it starts right here. It starts in this room. It starts with the stakeholders in this room, and it starts with the other elected officials in this city. So until we can find that common ground, this is going to go back and forth. It may not happen the next meeting or the meeting after that, but it's going to blow up again. So I'm putting myself out there today saying, I'm willing to work with anybody. with anybody in the city, with anybody in the school department, as long as your goal levels with mine of moving the district forward. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Charbonneau. Ms. Manolo.
So, excuse me, welcome back. Not that you went too far, but it's really nice to see you again. Aside from a couple of glitches with winters, yeah.
Gotta bring it up.
Our schools did open relatively well. For wellness, the Wellness Committee will be meeting again on September 19th. Our first meeting will just be updates on what our community partners have been doing, what they have available, and what we can learn from them. On October 24th, we will be having RIDO in, and they will be sharing information on the new health curriculum, the oral hygiene curriculum. And then in November 28th, we will be looking at hydroponics and how to implement those into our schools. And seeing it's been a very hectic summer for everybody, I think. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for everything you do for us. And good night.
Thank you, Ms. Manolo. Mr. Knight.
Congratulations to those of you who were reelected last night or elected to a new position. I did not seek reelection. Mr. Chabot is right. This committee is charged with overseeing a 16 school district that has been neglected for years, and we're finally doing something about it. And I want everybody to realize I am not criticizing anyone personally. I'm just saying this is what we're required to do when it comes to Title 16. And it's a shame that people think that I'm throwing stones. I'm not. When I first was elected here many years ago, we had a superintendent that operated without any oversight. We've since gone through a transition several times, I might add. I want to thank everybody for staying with us through that transition. That's what I got to say.
Mr. Larrabee.
I don't have much to say. Just want to thank everybody for a good start to the school year, and I do hope with my time left to continue to make an impact and actually get out to every school as well. But yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Larrabee. Marino.
Thank you, everyone. I want to consider you regretfully excellent points, and I'm concerned, Kim, I mean, I just want to say that I don't think that bringing up a constituent like to us is you overly I throw and I think it's very needed a look on the service. So
Okay, I think Mr. Charbonneau said it best. I think that, we have had some heated meetings, and this was clearly one of them. As I shared with Ms. Grant earlier, when she, apologized to me for being heated, I said that I know that it comes from a passion to do the right thing. And I know that we might disagree on the steps that need to be taken to do the right thing, but I continue to believe that the 7 people sitting here on this committee think through our decisions, always centering what is best for our students, our staff, our district, and that I really do believe we reach the correct decisions that way. So I look forward to the next chapter, and yeah, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Ms. Marino was seconded by Mr. Grant, Ms. Grant. I said it was seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. We are adjourned 7-0 at 8:46.